Western Washington, once again, a major stop on the campaign trail tonight as Democratic presidential hopeful Bernie Sanders speaks to thousands inside the Tacoma Dome. Well, Washington's primary is less than a month away, and candidates are still hoping for your vote. We appreciate you joining us here tonight. I'm David Rose.
And I'm Aliana Gomez. Q13 Simone Del Rosario is at the Tacoma Dome tonight for the campaign event. Simone, how did Sanders relate to this jam-packed Democratic race, of course, to our region?
Well, look, the talking points were the same as we've heard in other rallies that he's put on, but he's speaking to a very favorable crowd. Senator Bernie Sanders won the Democratic caucus here in Washington State back in 2016 with 73% of the vote. Of course, now he's going to have more challengers. We'll see how Super Tuesday shakes out on March 3rd, but with Washington's primary now coming a week later, Washington is in a much better position to be deciding the next Democratic nominee. And tonight, Senator Sanders was feeling very confident here in our state.
And we're going to win this nomination. We're going to win here in Washington. And we are going to defeat Trump because we have the strongest grassroots movement in the modern history of the United States of America.
Oh, well, we saw that grassroots movement today outside of the Tacoma Dome. People started lining up since this morning. Senator Sanders didn't even take the stage until nearly 8 o'clock tonight. We talked to people, high schoolers, people who are retired, all ages, coming from Bellingham all the way down to Portland.
I see a lot of young people. I see older people too, but 90% of it is young people, working class. And they're the ones that are the future of this country. And if they all get out and vote, we'll win.
I haven't seen people this excited to go out and vote in like all my grown-up years.
We've never had a politician like him in our lifetime.
He generates enthusiasm, and everywhere you see Bernie goes, he has the biggest crowds.
Well, he certainly had a big crowd here tonight. Nearly every single seat was filled inside the Tacoma Dome, many more standing close to the podium. Now, Sanders' campaign says that more than 17,000 people came to the rally tonight. Now I'll take you back outside the dome. There were just a handful of Trump supporters that showed up. They were shouting support at the president across the street at those Sanders supporters. Well, those Sanders supporters were shouting right back at them.
They were shouting profanities, they were screaming, F you and that and stuff. They weren't being too civil. From the typical reaction that you see across the country and how people respond.
And we have been hearing some criticism about how some of Sanders supporters have acted, especially toward other Democratic candidates in this primary race. Well, coming up at 10:30 tonight, Brandy Cruz has a one-on-one interview with Senator Sanders, and she asks him to respond to that criticism. For now, I'm live in Tacoma. Simone Del Rosario, Q13 News.
Well, Washington is now in the spotlight in the Democratic presidential race, and Bernie Sanders' packed appearance at the Tacoma Dome tonight is just the start. Q13's Brandy Cruz sat down with a presidential candidate before his rally in the South Sound tonight.
How do you feel about the state Democratic Party doing away with the caucus system as a way to award delegates?
I think it's fine. I mean, we're here tonight. It looks like there's going to be a very, very large turnout here in Tacoma. And what I do hope is that we can bring about the largest voter turnout that we have seen here in a very long time. I hope people participate in the process. This is the most consequential election in the modern history of this country. And I hope people listen to the agenda that we're bringing forth, because I think it is the agenda for working families.
And that was the reason for them switching, the biggest reason for them switching from the caucus to the primaries. They want more people to come out and they want more people to vote. But in 2016, so they had both, but the primary vote in 2016 was just symbolic. You absolutely took home the caucus. I think you got 73%. And then in the primary vote, 4 times as many voters came out. And you lost that to Hillary Clinton after doing so well in the caucus. So is there anything you need to change to make sure that your performance in the caucus is just as good as your performance in a primary?
Well, we're working as hard as we can, and I think last time the caucus was really where the action was. And that's where we put our energy into, and we got delegates from that. This time, obviously, the primary is going to be where the action is. We are going to have a whole lot of volunteers out knocking on doors, making the phone calls that we have. And again, I think the agenda that we are bringing to the working families of Washington is the agenda that people will respond to, and that is raising the minimum wage to a living wage, guaranteeing health care to all people as a human right, demanding that the wealthiest people in this country start paying their fair share of taxes, and understanding that climate change is an existential threat to this planet, and that we have got to be aggressive in transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel.
You mentioned, working families. I just saw Councilwoman Shama Sawant, who's a member of Socialist Alternative, in the hallway. She's a supporter of yours. She has endorsed you. At the same time, though, she's called for you not to run as a Democrat, but to run as an independent. She thinks you should use your campaign to, quote, launch a new mass party for working people instead of running inside a corporate party whose leadership is determined to stop him at all costs. It sounds like she's saying that you're a sellout for running as a Democrat.
Well, I don't think that's not what I'm hearing, but what I am doing is running as a Democrat. And we believe, having won the popular vote in Iowa, having won the New Hampshire primary, we're fighting right now as we speak to win in Nevada. I think we have a good shot in South Carolina, and I hope we can win here. So right now what we are doing, and we're working hard to achieve this, is to win the Democratic nomination and to defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country.
Your campaign has taken some flack in recent weeks for the behavior of your supporters. There was a Michael Bloomberg ad that came out today. I don't know if you saw it, but it's basically things your supporters have said. They've called Elizabeth Warren a snake. They called Pete Buttigieg a rat. You put out a statement a few days ago trying to sort of get things under control a little bit. I want to quote your statement. You said, our campaign is building a multi-generational, multiracial movement of love, compassion, and justice. We can certainly disagree on issues, but we must do it in a respectful manner. So if that's the movement that you're building, if that's the campaign you're building, love, compassion, justice, why is it that your campaign is attracting people who are doing something so antithetical to that?
First of all, do you know how many supporters we have?
A lot.
2.5 million, I think, who are involved in this thing.
Yeah.
All right? And no campaign can control 2.5 million people. Let me also tell you something. The people on our campaign, often our African American women leaders, are receiving incredibly abusive and ugly responses. That is the nature of the internet today, and that's unfortunate. So I disavow any of these ugly personal attacks. But again, when you have 2.5 million people out there, supporters all over the country, some people are going to say stupid things. And by the way, also, as you well know, the internet today is kind of the Wild West. And somebody could say something in your name, which may not have anything to do with you. So, I disavow that stuff. We are getting incoming attacks that are incredibly ugly as well. And I hope everybody can understand that we can have a good debate about the issues, but that we don't have to make these ugly personal attacks on anybody. Bottom line here is that at the end of the day, I tell you why I think we're going to win the nomination. And that is that the American people are sick and tired of a government that continues to represent the wealthy and the powerful. They want a government that represents working people. They want health care as a human right. They want to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. They want to deal with climate change. They want to deal with criminal justice reform. I think we have the agenda that is going to win the campaign and defeat Trump.
So you don't think that there's an issue with vitriol that's specific to your base or special to your base?
I just said to you that I don't know that they're even coming from my campaign.
Sure.
All right?
Well, not your campaign. I mean, nobody's accusing it of coming from your campaign.
Coming from,
but
when you have 2.5 million supporters, people will say things. And maybe these are people who are not supportive of me. Do you know for a fact that they are?
So they're people posing as Bernie Sanders supporters.
That could well be the case. But on the other hand, what I'm also telling you is that my campaign, people who work for me, my wife, has been subjected to incredibly ugly stuff. Now, we don't make a big deal about it, okay? But that is what happens out there. It is bad. I reject any ugliness from any of my supporters. But anybody who knows me and what our campaign is about, don't tell me that you're supporting Bernie Sanders if you're making ugly personal attacks on other people. We don't want your support.
Well, many of this year's presidential hopefuls are circling Washington's race on the calendar, and it could be because of timing. The primaries here are 3 weeks from tomorrow, and it's coming up much more quickly than in 2016. The primaries were held then on May 24th. during that race. But this time around, voters could have their hands on ballots before the end of this month. Most of the candidates are staying west throughout the week, with the Nevada caucus happening on Saturday.
Here's a look at which states will award their delegates before Washington's primary day comes on March 10th. Iowa and New Hampshire are now in the rearview mirror for the candidates, and after Nevada this week, South Carolina comes next. That state's primary is set for February 29th. Then the race will really open up on March 3rd. That's Super Tuesday. 14 states will vote for their favorite in the Democratic race, and American Samoa will also award 6 delegates in the race that day, with Democrats living abroad contributing 14 more. Our state follows a week later, along with 5 other states making decisions that day. With all that being said, the race will certainly be filling out quite a bit over the next 3 weeks, with 22 states up for grabs. Obviously, we're showing you blue there because this is the Democratic primary states. All right, Walter Kelly here now to take a look at our forecast. If you look at the temperatures, they're pretty blue, too. We drop down to freezing.